Welcome to the Graybeard Chronicles podcast. Your hosts, Brian Halstead and Kevin Harkins, are two gray-bearded patriots who love God, their family and friends, and their country. The Graybeards are here to inspire, inform, and educate you on a myriad of topics they are passionate about. Brian and Kevin have a strong desire to share this with you to help you live your best life. Sit back and enjoy this amazing podcast as the Graybeards pass along the wisdom of the ages.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. I'm Brian Halstead.
And I'm Kevin Harkins.
And Kevin, we're here to pass along some wisdom of the ages. What the heck does that mean?
We're not perfect, but we do have gray beards. And that means we've got some significant life experience, some life lessons, and some perspectives that are worthy of passing along.
Well, I think that sums it up nicely. Let's get to it.
Kevin, what's going on? You're laughing already, man. How the heck are you? You okay?
Doing wonderful. I am doing wonderful. How are you?
I am well, thank you.
You have a good weekend?
I did. I did. Most definitely.
Enjoyed those playoff games?
I did. All of them. All three of them.
All three of them. Isn't that funny? All three of them.
Yeah.
Well, those of you who don't know what happened this last weekend in football, there was only 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness. He told me the story before we came on the air, and I just nearly, tore a stomach muscle laughing. Do you want to share or you want me to share?
I don't mind sharing.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of funny, right?
It is.
So I knew there were 2 games. One was an early game, 3 o'clock, and then there was going to be the second game at 6:30.
Right.
I guess I didn't pay enough attention to who was playing in what game, and this is why I shouldn't be in charge of the remote. I should not. But anyways, and I was not being supervised. My wife was engaged in something else and was not supervising me at the time. So that in and of itself may have been the problem.
Yep.
So I got a hold of the remote and I start searching through the guide and I see the Chiefs-Bengals game, and I click on it. All right, I'm good. This was the early game, right? So I watched this game. It's a game I had not seen.
The whole game.
Yeah, it was a game I had not seen before, but it turns out I could have last year. Because I watched the whole damn game. And then it ended, and it flipped over. I guess my wife actually changed the channel, and then
to the next game.
The Eagles 49ers game was finishing up. There's like a minute and something left, and I'm like, why in the hell would they schedule both of those at the same time? That makes no sense. They're supposed to be an early game. Yeah, so then about that time, my daughter texts my wife and asks, what game was Dad watching? Because she was a little freaked out now because the game that I was watching is about to come on. Or at least the same 2 teams were about to come on. And so it turns out I watched 3 playoff games, well, parts of 3, all of one from last year, and the very end of the Eagles-San Francisco game.
Now, we've talked about this before, this being mindfulness being in the moment, being present. I'm telling you, there is no way that you were actually present for that game. It was had to be background.
I was engaging in some mindfulness on something.
You were,
but apparently it wasn't that game.
It was not that game because there had to be commentary along the way that would have tipped you off.
I tune that shit out. Right. I don't listen to that stuff. I'm here for the game. I want to watch the game.
Oh my goodness. The whole game from last year.
I didn't watch that game last year. So in my defense, it was new.
From a year ago against the same 2 teams. Yeah. Wow, that was
I like the second version better because the Chiefs won. But
that was. Are you embarrassed by that?
No.
You're not?
No.
Okay, that's good.
Shit happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great segue into what we're talking about.
Yeah? You think? What are we talking about?
We're talking about don't be embarrassed by your failures. Don't be embarrassed by your failures. Rather, learn from them and start again, which is actually a quote. People have said similar things, but if you look up that quote, mostly it comes from and is attributed to Richard Branson, the Virgin guy. And And so that's one of his kind of mantras that he says. And I'm glad that you personally were not embarrassed by that, because first of all, it has given me great joy.
Oh, dude, you were laughing like so hard I thought you were gonna pee yourself over there.
Yes, it was. It's because it's just hard for me to believe that the whole game. I mean, I could see 5 minutes, I could see maybe even a whole quarter, but the whole game.
Yep. Whole damn game.
That was pretty good. So yeah, anyway, and that really was a great segue, but I did want to talk about this. And so the reason this topic resonated with me when we came across this quote is because I know I personally have done things in my past, and I believe everybody can relate to this, where I'm not proud, and in some cases I am embarrassed by the failures that I've gone through. And here's this quote that's encouraging you to not be embarrassed by them, but rather to sort of have a different mindset and realize, okay, it's not the end of the world, and it's not. But it's isn't it interesting? It's a very much a mindset thing. As you approach life, as you go through things that you're dealing with, knowing that you're going to fail at some of them, try not to be embarrassed by them.
Well, I think it kind of is aligned perfectly with something I love and believe in is, don't take yourself so damn seriously. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things wrong. You're going to sit there and watch an entire football game from last year and not realize it until later. Shit happens.
Yeah.
You're going to shoot gas into the wrong house on a barricade situation at a SWAT call out. It could happen.
Wow. There's another one.
Yeah. You remember that story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, shit happens.
Okay.
The trailers, they all look alike.
Is there a time and a place to be embarrassed in a failure?
Well, I think sometimes, I think we're talking more, at least in my mind, in this scenario, I think we're talking about more, long term. Because I think sometimes, there's physiological things that happen and you get embarrassed in the moment, in a scenario that you can't necessarily control. The first thing that comes to mind is like you fart at some inappropriate time, and it's noticeable, noticed by many people or whatever. That's just one example. But I mean, there might be, so that wasn't, I mean, yeah, that's a failure to control your gas, but yeah, I don't know, maybe that's a weird example. I think it is a weird example.
It's all right.
But you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's going to happen, right? In the moment, you're going to be embarrassed about something.
Yeah.
But, long term, I think is, at least my interpretation of the meaning of that quote is, don't let it hinder you going forward.
Yeah.
And understand that, yes, it's a mistake. It's a failure. And learn from it, right? So there's oftentimes, failures, they're going to leave clues as to why that happened. And learn from those so that you don't do it again.
There you go. I agree. And I'm placing these, things that you do that could potentially turn into embarrassing situations into kind of two different buckets. One bucket is you're just doing something stupid. If you're heading down a path and you're doing something stupid and it goes wrong and it fails, you probably ought to, although.
Right. One of those hold my beer moments.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There you go. That's a good one. But if you're purposefully moving towards something that you have made a decision to try, maybe it's a project at work, maybe it's something at home that you're doing, maybe it's a strategy in a relationship, maybe whatever, and it fails, that's not something to be embarrassed by. Rather, that's something to, okay, now what do I do? That didn't work out. Now where do I go from here?
Yeah, I think relationships is a great example of that, right? So I think people have a tendency to internalize that failure and have it potentially cause a negative impact on their self-esteem, their confidence, the view of themselves, and that's not productive in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And let's say that in that case, you were the jackass, you were the complete reason, and it takes two to tango. And at the same time, let's say you can own it, right? You were the major contributor to this relationship going south. Okay, right? Well, you can't undo it. You don't have a time machine.
Right.
So how do you change your behavior so that doesn't happen again? Or do you like that outcome?
Right.
And then repeat that same behavior, and you're guaranteed it'll happen again.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about here is evaluating that and doing it different next time.
Yeah. And not letting it destroy you or get you down or knock you into a downward spiral of depression,
Right.
or negative thinking and all of that. All of this stuff we've talked about before. And the thing is, we are so prone to it, many of us,
Right.
maybe even most of us. Something happens, yeah, and back to the relationships for a second. You do something that maybe you thought might be a good idea, it turned out to be you completely misread a situation or you misread a person, and
Right.
you do something, you say something.
Whew, glad that's never happened.
Yeah. And it just doesn't hit the way you the way you intended it. And next thing you know, something bad has happened with that relationship because of it. Yeah, that's that can lead to, you just described it perfectly. Oh my goodness, what have I done? I've really blown it. And yeah, don't get stuck there. Don't do that. Snap out of it and chunk it down into the bits and pieces of the approach, and then figure out where to go from there.
Yeah, and so here's something that just hit me too. While you're in that scenario and you're doing that evaluation, I think there's some importance of mindset tense, right? So don't get caught up in the what should I have done differently. Flip that to what will I do differently in the future.
Right.
How will I modify my behavior? Because I think, when you start looking at what should I have done differently, then you're still driving, looking in that rearview mirror. When you flip that to how am I going to do this differently going forward, now you're looking out the windshield again.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing to call out.
You bet. And I've been doing some reading about Sarah Blakely, the Spanx founder, and that we've talked about. We've actually done a podcast on her before. And she told a story that is now recorded and out there about her home life when she was growing up. And one of the things that her father would ask her and her sister, I think, I don't know if there's more than just the two of them, but he would say to them at the dinner table, "What have you failed at today?" And he would want to hear those stories. And that is encouraging them to try new things. And when they don't work out, what did you learn from it? That's a really great approach, especially coming from a parent to a child.
Yeah, that is pretty cool because it early on it takes away the fear of or the stigma associated with failing. Yeah, that's cool.
Isn't that cool? And then you learn to be okay with failing, and failing. And there's another quote, and I don't know who said this, but it's basically I either succeed or I learn. I either win or I learn. There's no such thing as losing. There's no such thing as failure. It's just again, you're getting back into the mind part of it. Yep. And I know many examples in my own life about, especially business, which is, probably where I spend, not probably, it is where I spend most of my time, that you try something, it doesn't work out. Yeah, can you get over that and move on? And you need to, like I said, chunk it down into the pieces of it and then move forward. Better, start again. As Richard Branson says, start again. Get back on the horse.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, there's all kinds of examples how, people, and I don't know that I necessarily would, I guess I'd lump this into the failure category, but you talk about J.K. Rowling, the author of all the Harry Potter stuff, right?
Right.
And the number of times that she was turned down, right? And what if she'd internalized that as a failure and didn't drive forward? We would have never got to experience that. And, think about all the guys that did, or guys and gals potentially that did turn her away and said, that stuff wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
How stupid they feel now. But, it's all about timing in a lot of cases too. But, you gotta keep going. Just because somebody tells you no, tells you your stuff sucks, tells you shouldn't quit your day job and you should keep doing that because what you're delving into is not going to work out for you, and don't listen to that stuff.
Yeah.
Let those failures be the traction on the way to success.
There you go. That's great advice. Great advice. And back to Sarah for a moment at her home. Her father was an attorney. This reminded me of this too. It's exactly to your point. And so she grew up thinking, I want to be an attorney. I am going to do this. I love to watch my father. I love what he does. I'm going to take that on as my own. And I'm going to law school and I'm going to become an attorney. She took the law school admissions test, the LSATs.
Right.
Did horrible on it. Horrible. Like no law school would ever take you with this score. So she decided to take a course and, a tutoring course to get everything all boosted up so that she can go through it again. Took the LSATs the second time and scored 1 point worse after the course.
Yeah.
That was the universe saying,
you should do something different.
That's
the learning from your failures.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. And then she went on, what did she sell like copiers or printers or something?
Fax machines.
Yeah.
Door to door for like 8 years while she was trying to figure out what she wanted to do when she grew up.
She figured it out now.
Whew. World's first or youngest, or maybe first and youngest female self-made billionaire.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And there's a whole bunch of behinds out there running around looking better because of her.
That's right. That's right.
God bless you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So don't let your failures get you down. Don't be embarrassed by them. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, learn a lesson, and start again.
Right. And watch the next game, the game from the current year. You're welcome that I gave you that. I just threw that softball to you that would, tie this all together tonight.
Wow. I mean, this thing could have played out in a whole bunch of different ways. Unfortunately, you've discovered, but you could have been walking around the whole next day going, damn, the Bengals won again.
Right, right. It looks like it's going to be a Bengals Eagles Super Bowl. And people be like, what are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, okay. Anyway, thank you for that. I will be giggling in the middle of the night. I'll wake up just laughing. No, seeing you. I'm visualizing you on the couch with your wife watching the game.
Right.
Kind of, sort of.
Clearly, neither one of us were, fully engaged in watching the game.
Right.
Yeah. That's funny.
Yes, it is.
I got a feeling this is not the last time I'm going to hear that story.
Oh, that's good. That's what I got, Brian. That's what I got for you tonight.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. I appreciate the discussion, and it's absolutely something that we should all take to heart, right? So, don't be embarrassed by your failures. Don't be embarrassed in general. Go out there and be you. Figure out how to be the best you that you can possibly be, and go do it.
Amen. Knowing that there's going to be ups and downs, keep going.
And to hell with anybody else that don't like
it.
Right? As long as you're being a decent human being. You have to throw that caveat in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And I didn't make a mistake this week and forget to charge the camera, so we actually have the right camera working this week.
Everything's looking great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Kevin actually was admiring himself in the mirror quite a bit before we started recording, commenting on how well he looked and so on.
I mean, everybody knows that.
Yeah, and what was your catchphrase? If you got it, flaunt it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were doing that. Are you embarrassed right now?
No.
Good. You shouldn't be, that's just funny.
All right. That is just funny.
All right. Well, I'm going to reach over here and hit this button. No matter who you are, where you are, what you're doing, make sure between this podcast and the next, you take time
to enjoy the ride.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Graybeard Chronicles. Please subscribe so you'll receive notification when new episodes are available. To learn more about the Graybeards, visit their website, graybeardchronicles.com.